This is a Healthier Michigan podcast. I'm your host, Chuck Gatica, and in this series, we're exploring the balance between what you can and can't control when it comes to your health. From lifestyle choices and aging to genetics and family history, we'll dig into factors that shape our health every single day. And in this episode, we're going to dive into how small changes to our lifestyle can make a big difference for our long-term health. With me today is care management physician for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Dr. Angela Seabright. Good to see you again, doctor.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks. So a lot of us feel like our health is beyond our control. You know, something starts to happen and it's just like, I don't know, the world is wagging the tail on the dog instead of me being in control, So we're focusing today on practical changes in our daily routine that can have powerful impact on our overall health. And I guess some of those we could see impact literally today if we started them. But let's talk about what factors have the biggest impact and what small steps we can start taking right now to start chipping away at maybe potential health problems or something we know about.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, when it comes to our health, sometimes we feel really powerless, but there are things that we can control. And oftentimes that comes down to choices.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we choose to eat, how we choose to move our bodies, if we move our bodies, what activities we choose to engage in, how late we stay up, even something as simple as flossing your teeth or washing your hands. These are examples of choices we can make every day for our health. And some of the choices we make, unfortunately, aren't always the best. And so we really have to sometimes stop and ask ourselves, was that the best choice for my health and well-being? And by doing that, you're really empowering yourself to make decisions for your health. And that's why you hear all the time about lifestyle changes and lifestyle modifications when it comes to preventing disease as well as treating disease. Mm-hmm. That can be just as important as medications when coming up with a comprehensive treatment plan for certain conditions.
Now, this word control is an interesting one to me because if you're going to look for transformational change in your life in any place, you've got to start it to begin it, right? I mean, I'm going to start my diet Monday and then, by Thursday, well, it's not working so well. So you have to start it. And then it seems like control is also founded in the idea that you've got to maintain it, right? To see change coming in your life, right?
Exactly. The first step is recognizing what needs to be changed and then making a plan.
Yeah. And executing the plan, because so many of us go through the book of excuses, like I'm on page 175, how many excuses can we have? So we've got to be honest with ourselves. But from your perspective, what are the most effective lifestyle changes that people can make to enhance their health that you honest to goodness see impact from?
Yep. And we hear it all the time. It goes back to the pillars of our health. So we know that's nutrition, exercise, sleep, and then your emotional wellness. So with your nutrition or diet, you want to eat more whole foods, you want to eat more plant-based, you want to limit the processed foods and sugar. Don't forget about hydration. I think when we think about our diets, we forget about hydration, and that's so important. With exercise, you want to be physically active. You want to move your body. Adults need 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity per week. With sleep, we've talked a lot about sleep on other podcasts, but for adults, you want to get at least 7 hours of sleep per night. If you don't, you're not only going to be tired, but you're also going to be more prone to chronic diseases. And then, of course, your emotional health. You really want to work on your stress. And you can't limit your stress like you can, say, your food portions, but you can control how you respond to stress and have the tools to reduce the tension and the effects of stress on your mind and body. So those tools are, breath work, meditation. Exercise is a great stress reliever, connecting with friends and family. And then for those who are experiencing symptoms of depression, anxiety, seeking therapy or medical help. And then when we think about pillars of health, we also think about our exposure to toxins and substances. So you definitely don't want to smoke, all capitals, exclamation point, don't smoke. And you want to limit your alcohol intake. And then this isn't really a lifestyle change. It's more of a behavior or an action item. You really want to get in for your yearly physical and your preventive screenings. So you want to know those numbers. What is your
Hmm.
blood pressure? You're not going to know what your blood pressure is. Hypertension or high blood pressure is often a silent disease. So you may be walking around with sky high blood pressure and you won't know it. What is your blood sugar, your cholesterol? Get your dental exams. Your oral health is linked with your overall health. Your cancer screenings, staying up to date on your immunizations. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We can't always prevent disease, but the sooner you know, you can manage chronic conditions. And with diseases like cancer, the earlier you know, the better.
And so much of what you say is commonsensical, right? I mean, it just seems like we all should know this, and yet there are certain things that either I've observed. For instance, if you are having trouble sleeping or you've got sleep apnea, right? You're a big snorer, and the only way to try to fix that is to go see the sleep doctor and maybe even use a CPAP. That's a scary new territory that could seem like going to the moon, on a spaceship. But if you don't embrace that idea of change and what it can bring you, it seems like you could be floundering and just kind of wondering, well, maybe next year, maybe next year. So it does seem like some of these scary things, or apparently scary things, can be rewarding if we just, jump into them head first. You just have to go at it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's when you put things off, then the problem can become bigger.
Yeah. Mindset. So much of this, and we're going to be talking about this in this series a lot. The idea that not just having a positive mental attitude, I can see through the walls, I can do it. That all has a point and a purpose. But when you're talking about setting up a mindset in making sustainable health changes, how do people improve their approach to wellness by even little changes in their mindset?
Well, mindset plays a huge role. By nature, we tend to take the path of least resistance.
Mm,
And sometimes that means continuing with habits and routines that aren't the healthiest simply because they are the easiest. That's our routine. And
yeah.
our mindset is more fixed, meaning, less open to change and believing that your health is predetermined or that it's too late, you're too old, to make sustainable change. And we hear that a lot with smokers, especially. They'll say, I've been smoking for so long. What's quitting now going to do?
Yeah.
And, while that's true, the earlier you quit, the better for your health. There are still significant health gains made, even in older individuals, once they quit. So, recent studies have shown that even quitting at age 65 or later can add years to your life. And then
Hmm.
also, just the improvement in your day to day quality of life makes it so important. So, we really have to fix the fixed mindset, and to do that, you need support. It's a really hard thing to do on your own. So, partner with your clinician, use the buddy system. Maybe you
Yeah.
have a friend or a family member who has similar health goals, and you can buddy up and keep each other accountable. Health and wellness coaching is another behavioral change intervention strategy. There's nothing wrong with needing a little extra support and accountability.
And that whole idea of coaching or somebody walking alongside you, whether it's a jogging buddy, whether you're into tracking your food and your spouse sees that and now you've actually become an influencer, right? I mean, you have that opportunity when you make change to help influence the people in your circle as well. If nothing else, they go, well, if he can do it, I can do it, So there
Right.
could be a lot of positive change there too.
Right. It takes a team, and
Yeah.
you don't have to do it alone. And I think, that negative self perception can really change when you see that others are doing it and others are supporting you.
I remember I would call this a hack, and it applies, I think, often to older folks that are aging in place. But my dad would have trouble with his blood pressure, and he would say, I forgot to drink water today. And he wasn't out of it. I would say, Dad, how do you forget to drink water? So the hack for us was to set bottles of water around the house. So there was brand new bottles. So there was no way, he wasn't going to carry the 55-gallon drum with the handle, like we take to a workout place. But that worked a miracle because everywhere he walked, he had to go buy a new bottle of water and say, oh, yeah, I better drink my water. So I think there are hacks that we can employ, right, to help us with these sustainable changes, whether it's, flossing or drinking more water for our better health.
Right. I love that example because you almost made it, a little bit of a game for your
Right.
father. And
Yeah.
I'm sure he found some humor in it, but I think he also, every time he looked at that water bottle, he probably felt some love. So he was drinking that water not only for himself, but for his loved ones.
Yeah, yeah. So you've talked a little bit about this in various ways, but common barriers that seem to prevent all of us, none of us are perfect, from taking control of our health. How do we overcome these barriers? And maybe some of them are hacks like that, but how do we overcome them?
Yeah, well, support is a great thing.
Hmm.
Probably the biggest barrier is time. There just aren't enough hours in the day, especially if you're, taking my advice and getting your 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
And when you think about making these changes, grocery shopping and meal prepping, that all takes time and planning and preparation. And sometimes we just don't have that luxury. So what you can do is sprinkle in healthy habits throughout the day. So it may look like, saying no to that donut or packing a lunch instead of buying a lunch. If you don't have time to work out, maybe while you're on a phone call, you can walk around the house instead of sitting. There are stand up desks that people use so they can kind of, get out of that sedentary job that they have. You can take the
yeah,
stairs instead of the elevator. So these are small yet impactful strategies to incorporate healthy habits, and they do matter. You don't have to necessarily have you should have scheduled exercise, but if you can't, even just, having some additional physical activity throughout your day is very beneficial. But I think we can't talk about barriers unless, we take note of the fact that some people do have medical barriers
hmm,
to controlling their health. So
yeah,
it may be health problems or physical limitations where they just simply can't be as active as they would like. There may be some addiction issues at play, especially with food and substances. The psychological barrier, as you mentioned, with our mindset and that negative self-perception or that anxiety around health or going to the doctor. You mentioned that sleep study. It could seem rather daunting to take that first step and go through the motions of getting a doctor's visit and then going through the diagnostic studies. Um, and then there are social determinants of health. So these are the non medical factors that affect our health outcomes. So where you live, your
hmm,
education, where
yeah.
you work, your access to healthcare, all of that plays a role. So it's easy to say, eat a healthy and well balanced meal. But some people really don't have the knowledge of what that means or the access to obtain healthy food. They
Yeah.
may live in a food desert or a medical desert where they're lacking access. So barriers can occur on the individual level, but also on a larger scale.
And I think that idea of small, healthy habits you can employ, if you've got a medical condition that causes you, or you can't stand, you can't use your legs, that's a pretty obvious thing. But for many people, even when the weather takes the turn here in Michigan, and you're not going to want to go for your 7,500 steps outside because of ice, you could still take a phone call in the house and walk around from the kitchen to the family room and back and get some steps today. There are ways that we can do that. And I'm always encouraged by those little things that we can employ.
Yeah, it's just small little changes can make a big difference.
Yeah. Uh, as we start to wrap this up, any other territory we haven't dealt with that even goes beyond the notion of common sense, that things that you would suggest we start to think about here?
Well, I think the biggest, if you do nothing else, go in and get your preventative exams
Mm,
and talk with your doctor about your health concerns. We all have concerns about our health. And I think just taking that first step is the most important. And they're baby steps. A step in the right direction is a step in the right direction. So even if
yeah.
it's a baby step, don't get down on yourself. You're still taking that step.
And for me, and I don't think I'm unusual in this sense, I love wins. I love having a win. And for me, over time, getting an annual physical, which includes blood work, gives me not only a baseline, all the good reasons you're looking back 3 years ago and seeing where the numbers are now, and they've all gone in the right way. But it has become a bit of a thumbs up game for me, right? It just, I look at it and I think, well, there's a win. My A1C is lower, my cholesterol went down. And when you start to see these little things that give you a thumbs up in your life, nobody has to be around me, nobody has to pat me on the back. I just feel like, wow, I actually did have a way of making a change. I was taking control, and I am, and there's a win. So it's almost like self coaching in a way, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm. It's taking ownership, and it's measuring the changes. So if you are someone who is starting with lifestyle
Yeah.
changes, seeing that little drop in your blood pressure or seeing the scale drop a few pounds, nothing like positive reinforcement right there.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Seabright, it's good to have you with us. We won't let you go. We're going to reel you back in. So we want to talk about this topic in a number of episodes. So thanks for being with us this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Angela Seabright is care management physician of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. And next up, we're going to look at the impact of genetics and family history on our health. Have you ever wondered how much of your health story is written by your DNA? Join us as we unpack this and we explore what you inherit and what you can't change. We've talked about what maybe you can change and how understanding those factors can actually empower you. Be well.